Evening, everyone. Welcome to Zühlke. Right, my name is Jim Lim. I'm the head of health for Zühlke APAC. Right, so today we are very honored to have organized this event, right, as part of the Swiss Week with Singapore-ETH Centre. Right, and you can see their booth there. Feel free to take a look and understand more of what the Singapore-ETH Centre is doing. Right, and also together with Embassy of Switzerland in Singapore. Right, so we are very honored to organize this event. Right, it's part of the Swiss Week, and I'll let our guest of honor to give the welcome speech in a while. So maybe I can invite Dr. Regula Kruspen. I hope that I pronounced it correctly, right? She's the Deputy Head of Mission from the Embassy of Switzerland in Singapore. So maybe welcome Dr. Regula, please, the welcome speech.
Thank you very much, Jim, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of Switzerland. A hearty welcome to tonight's event as part of the program of the Swiss Weeks 2024. This is our third edition of this biannual Swiss Weeks, and it is only possible thanks to great partners such as Singapore-ETH Centre, Zühlke, and our key partners such as Hilti Partners Group, Bühler, Georg Fischer, Huber's Butchery, Roche, and Schellenberg Wittmer. We still have events ongoing until the 8th of June. Please do check out our website on swissweeks.sg. There are also some flyers at the entrance, I saw. So please, and even in your goodie bags, I heard. So it's a real pleasure to join hands today with Zühlke, our gracious host, and it's really cool to see such a full house tonight. We're going to embark on an evening to better understand where our health system is and will be going in the future. And as we delve deeper into today's topic, it might be a little bit ironic to refer to a Roman philosopher of like 2,000 years ago, but bear with me, some truths still remain. And it is actually Virgil, or Vigil in German, who stated, "The greatest wealth is health." He probably did not say that in English, but it just embodies it so well, the importance of well-being, not just for the individual, but also for the society and our nations. So indeed, it's the health that is of our people that is also a key success factor for Switzerland and Singapore. Small nations with no natural resources, one can say, then we do have to invest in the only resource that we have, which is our people. And it is their well-being that is ultimately the foundation of our both countries' success. Nurturing talent, fostering innovation are essential. And we're pretty good at it, both Singapore and Switzerland, if I may add. And you just have to look at these numerous indexes and rankings that are out there on innovation. So resilience and adaptability are what the workforce ultimately hinges on. Yet, we do face challenges: an aging society, raising costs that will force us to confront issues such as healthcare accessibility, affordability, and sustainability overall. And all healthcare systems also face, the challenges of scarcity of healthcare professionals. But now we have artificial intelligence, AI, that is promising nothing else but a revolution. And AI is here, and it is here to stay. I would say we should think of automating medical diagnosis, streamlining and personalizing treatment processes, and even, maybe having AI helping us in inventing new drugs. AI coming to you instead of you going to the doctor. But it also comes with uncertainties, ethical challenges, and a lot of questions. For example, if we can ask the AI any question and each answer is generated uniquely, how can we be sure that it is actually reliable and safe? Or to what extent can or should AI be involved in sensitive medical decisions and ensure confidentiality and patient safety and ethical standards? Or how should data be handled? Patient data in particular, collected, stored, utilized in such an AI system. And what is the role of states, public and private sector in all of this? Don't look at me for answers. Because we're lucky to have an excellent panel tonight, a fantastic one, I must say. And these are experts who are working on these questions and all those questions that you might have. So with no further ado, I would like to thank you for your kind attention and hand over to Jim Lim, Head of Health Industry at Zühlke, and wish you a very engaging evening.
Thank you, Dr. Radula. Okay, so you can see that I'm sitting very far away from panelists because we have a giant over here, all the AI giants over here, right? But just to share with you, actually it's a very curated panel that we have decided who to invite. You can see people representing the private companies, right? MedTech companies, pharma companies, and then you have public institutions, and you have evangelists as well. And most importantly, if you look at it, there are 6 of us on the photo, 3 of us representing Swiss company, right? So Roche, Singapore-ETH Centre, and Zühlke, and 3 of them will be representing Singapore, SingHealth, MOHT, and Synapxe, right? So it's a well-balanced perspective of things, right? So without further ado, maybe I can maybe we do a quick Slido first, since it's a part of the tech program and Swiss Week, right? So just one question. We actually wanted to do 3 questions, but I don't think we have the time, right? So just one quick question, right? What are your biggest concern about the use of AI in healthcare? You need to scan, so scan the QR code, take out your phone, start scanning, right? And vote for the one that is your biggest concern. Okay, you see the numbers changing, but I can see that the one about data privacy. Oh, okay. Ethical issues, okay, that's good. Okay, maybe we take the next 10 seconds to finish it up. It's interesting that nobody thinks that AI is going to replace your job. I thought that's a common fear, right, that most people have. Okay, ethical issues, data privacy, right? I think these are common, that we look at challenges in AI, right? And I'm sure the panelists later on will be actually sharing more with you, because that's one of the questions for them as well, right? So let's go back to the panel introduction, right? So very quickly, I'll just introduce our panelists, right? Our distinguished panelists for tonight. First, Mr. Andy Ta, right? Andy is the Director of Data Analytics and AI, called DNA, right? If you wonder what DNA is for, the new DNA definition is Data Analytics and AI, right? And he's the Chief Data Officer of Synapxe as well. So Synapxe, again, probably Andy can do a quick introduction of himself later on, right? Synapxe is actually the IT arm for the public hospital, public clusters in Singapore, right? Welcome, Andy, and thanks for coming, right? And next one is we have Miss Yo Ying Ying, right? She's from Roche. She's a general manager of Roche. And Ying Ying comes from a pharma background, right? And of course, she'll be sharing with us a lot about AI use in medtech and pharma industry later on as well, right? Third, we have Prof. Dr. Benedikt, right? Benedikt is from Singapore-ETH Centre, from the Future of Health Tech, FST, and focus a lot on the future of health tech itself, right? And next we have Dr. Prof. Daniel Ting, right, from SingHealth. I think Daniel just flew back today, right? Thanks for coming to join us as well. Daniel is the director of AI office from SingHealth itself, right? But he wears many hats, and I'll let him introduce himself later on when we go to the first question. And last but not least, Prof. Robert Morris from MOHT, right? You want to understand where the future is, the biggest bold prediction about the future of health, right? Prof. Robert Morris is the one to go for. Yeah. So thanks again, all panelists, for agreeing to join our panel discussion tonight. Yeah. So maybe a first question to Daniel, right? Since you flew all the way back today, right? You wear multiple hats, right? I know you when you are SNEC or SURI, right? And you're also now the director of AI office of SingHealth, right? Wearing so many hats, and also advisory board in UK and US, right? Could you share some of your successful AI use cases that you have implemented before, and probably also the not so successful ones, so that we can all learn from it?
Yeah, thanks for the kind invite to share in the Swiss Week, and thanks Regula and for organizing this. And yeah, I mean, I can talk about my pain and challenges for 3 days and 3 nights. But I'll start with the easier one first, like the success. I mean, the success story. I wouldn't think so much of a success story, but I think something that I enjoy doing. So I came from a clinical background. So I did my MD, PhD, in Australia, and then and my PhD is in optical engineering and image analytics. That was a pre-deep learning era, and that has excited me about some of the things that computer science can do. And of course, deep learning came, and I started with SNEC. As a chief resident then, and I was tasked to actually build a AI-based technology using retina imaging. So basically, for diabetic population. So all the diabetic population needs annual eye screening, and it is very manual intensive. And a lot of the countries outside Singapore, outside the resource-rich country, actually do not have ophthalmology expertise. So the question is whether we could actually leverage on technology to actually train an AI system, like how people actually log in. During that time, I'm from the Facebook time, right? Right now it's all Instagram or TikTok, and I actually don't even have a TikTok account right now. But previously, like Facebook facial recognition, when you actually tag a photo and then automatically your name is suggested or your friend's name is suggested, that's all computer vision. So I was thinking whether, me and my team, and was thinking whether we can leverage the same technology for eye imaging. So we actually started that, and then we managed to actually go through a lot of the challenging period to actually train the system. And then finally we get a paper published. But from the publication of the paper to the implementation, it actually take at least 4 to 5 years. So the challenges then came. Having a high impact papers in the academic world is always something that someone would be very excited about. But when the moment that you feel like this is high impact papers, the next day I'm going to use it in clinic, that is not true, because then you talk about regulatory challenges. You talk about the buy-in from the clinical world. Not only that, the cost. When we talk about the cost of implementation, where to deploy, because back then, when you actually try to do something very disruptive, no one in the ecosystem know how to handle it. Right now, generative AI is also experiencing the similar problems. So those are the things that we have learned in a very hard way. And then without having a commercial arm, how do you de-risk the technology from the institution so that it can actually be brought to the commercial or the real world settings? That's another set of problems. So those are the few different key areas when one started a technology from the real world, from the academia settings. When you want to translate the technology and bring the technology to the commercial settings, these are some of the few key considerations that one actually have to be aware of. Yeah. So I'm gonna stop here because if I carry on, I'll see you guys for breakfast tomorrow.
Thanks for sharing, and I'm sure after this panel discussion, when we have dinner, you can feel free to ask Daniel more about his success stories as well. Yeah. So maybe I move on the next question to Andy. Right. So Daniel has shared some of the experience in the institution itself, but we all know Synapse actually do a lot of cross-cluster projects at the national level, right? So maybe you can share with us as well from a Synapse perspective, right? What are some of the major challenges and barriers to implement AI into the healthcare systems, especially when it touches the national level?
Okay, so maybe, I think similar to what, I was part of the experience that Daniel was like for some of the projects, right? So if I have to talk about the engineering pain that we have to go through, I think we have to actually get some morphine for everybody, right? But I think I'll just put it at two broad levels from a tech perspective. I think the first one is about data, right? I think for healthcare data, the problem that we have in our multi-institution cluster environment is that we have a very large variability of data, right? When we talk about one single indicator, like, what is the time of admission, right? Everybody has a different definition, right? And time of discharge, everybody has a different definition. And when we break down to it and when we analyze it, a lot of variability comes from the analysis, and even when you create models or implement assimilate AI into some of the processes, there'll be a lot of differences in how things happen. So I think one of those challenges, how can we make the data more standardized, right? So together with the help of the Ministry of Health, actually, Wei Yang was here. So, when he was a DS, he actually put a lot of stake into it, right? I think we are going to this one EMR setup, right, where we are bringing all our three major clusters in the public healthcare into one EMR system, getting them to standardize and sit down and agree on a set of standardized indicators. So it makes things easier going forward so that we can do the feedback loop to help in the operations later. Now, we also have what we call the National Electronic Health Record, and this helps captures the other side of the data that comes beyond the public healthcare institutions so that we have a broad overview of the entire population or the residents in Singapore. So actually, the models that we have been building actually primarily relies on that data because we want to get a broad view of everything. So with the combination of better data from the public healthcare, where we have the high resolution and the broad data that we get from NHR, actually that will help us solve this. We are still in our journey. I think we have gotten quite good progress, but I think it's still a lot of work to get there, to get it clean. The other part I want to share, which is going to be another long story, is about how can we bring innovation into public healthcare in a really short amount of time, right? I think a lot of people will have known that the comment about public healthcare is that we have more pilots than the Air Force in Singapore, right? So, and I think naturally so, because we do a lot of experimentation, there's a lot of things that we are trying out. But the problem is that a successful experimentation or POC will take many years to be deployed. And by the time they take the idea, they want to deploy 2 years later, there's going to be so much changes, and then you have to refactor for the changes, and then another 2 years, and kind of it's a never-ending game, right? So for Synapse, we are changing our model of view where we believe that we want to use our partners to help us, right? There's about 4,000 Synappians in Singapore working on health tech, and it's not enough, right? But it's not possible to have the entire nation working on health tech alone, right? So we need help from others, and the best way is to work with the partners or people who have the solutions, people who have the ideas, to quickly accelerate that process of experimentation, POC, pilot into production. We have gone by looking at reviewing our entire complex healthcare ecosystem of architectures to simplify them. We are trying to make it more open. We have actually created a new capability called the Innovation Capability Enablement.
I see.
So yeah, ICE. So it basically serves as a front door for all partners that want to come in. We do a few things there. I don't lead the team, so I'm not very clear about the name, but I know exactly what we're trying to do. So it's a front door for all partners to come in, right? If you have an idea but you don't know who to talk to, we will help you matchmake. We'll bring you to the right person so that you can quickly get the stakeholder to understand, can make the right decision to move forward, right? Because we want you to spend time meeting the entire public healthcare to know that, oh, that's the guy that is actually the deciding factor. The second part is that we're going to bring all our architecture solutions into a sandbox to simplify it so that you can deploy a solution there to test out how it can integrate with our complex ecosystem of layers of security as well as integration, right? So if you think that your product is good enough, put it inside, then we can work out how you then can assimilate your product into our ecosystem. The other thing we want to do is also security is very important, right? It's so important. It's still very important, and it's going to be very important. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that you're aware of what is our security expectations of your products if you want to come into the environment, right? There's no point after 2 years of pilot that we tell you, well, now you have this 1,000 things that you have to verify, and then take you another few more years. We want to tell you all these things upfront so that when you're doing the pilot in a sandbox environment to try out, you can also have time to build and get your systems ready, right? I think these are things that we're trying to accelerate and bring some of the things in front to help our partners so that first we can accelerate the involvement of getting partners to be part of public healthcare, and number two, to deploy more things so that our patients or population can benefit from all these solutions faster.
Thanks, Andy, for sharing. Very comprehensive. And we actually have many in the audience from the health tech and medtech innovative startups or scale-ups. So I'm sure they will learn a lot. And Andy has shared, right? You can approach Andy to be connected to ICE, which is headed by Glenn Neo, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I know him for 20 over years as well, Glenn. And then also, I think the part about Sandbox, if you're interested to know about that, right? As well as the security consideration. So I think it's very comprehensive, right? And we actually quoted in our one of our white paper about there are more pilots in healthcare industry than the aeroplane industry. Yeah,
Not just Singapore.
yeah, not just Singapore. Okay, very interesting. Okay, great. So maybe I move to Prof. Robert, right? Yeah. So I think Daniel has shared from more cluster institution perspective, and he has shared from a national level like NEHR, which are very important systems, right? So maybe from MOHT perspective, right? What are additional things that you are driving, especially in the AI field? And many of them, when I talk to them, they are very interested to work with MOH or MOHT to get into the health ecosystems. So how can they do that? Maybe you can share with us.
I think Andy and Daniel have already covered the ground very well about the difficulties and security and actually all the things that you have to do, for example, with an AI solution. And we are a much smaller organization. Synapxe is our partner with 4,000 people. We're over the order of 100 people. And so we may be more like, we're about the same size as Zühlke in Singapore, or one of the smaller companies. We have to be very selective and only focus on a few things and try to do those things right. So we have to not think necessarily across the whole healthcare system and every opportunity, but we need to think across the whole population and say, what is the greatest burden of disease? Where are people, what's causing premature deaths? What's causing people to not fulfill their potential? What's causing them to live with disabilities? One of the saddest things is people who have a lifespan that's so different from their health span and they can't really enjoy their life. So we look very carefully at that and then we pick a few things. And you might not be surprised to learn that they're all about a few chronic diseases, which consume most of that burden of disease, including mental health, which is becoming more and more challenging as we all live very stressed lives, especially our young people. So given that, then you have to say you pick a few problems. Those problems are now set for you. You're not doing the whole portfolio, right? They're set for you, and you say, well, how can I use very effective, efficient technology to zero in on them and solve them? And the answer is be careful, not necessarily an AI problem. It's definite, almost for sure, a problem of data and information. But it might be a simple data technique. It might be something that you can solve with a rule-based system, which some people, we used to call AI. Now we kind of look down on it as AI. Maybe it's a regression, a linear or a nonlinear regression, and we just have to find the right path through one of these systems or the right way of regulating a medical device. So apply AI selectively. Then having said that, the focus and the very careful use, trying to accelerate the path towards safety, deploying things quickly but safely. Think about other creative techniques of doing that in an effective way. A rule-based system would be an example. But other things you can do. For example, we use generative AI, but we use it in a dual dialogue system at the moment to advise our clinicians rather than going direct to patient. We use AI going direct to patients, but where we do that, we use very, very constrained systems. We actually don't use LLMs yet for that. Hopefully we will one day. So using very constrained, and I'll give you one example where we do use black box, very large, complex black box systems. We only use the machine learning to escalate and to create an alarm, never to de-escalate. And that creates a level of safety. There are a few very basic principles like that. Focus on the data, focus on the burden of disease, use simple systems, and use very simple algorithms to guarantee safety, whether they be dual dialogue or systems that escalate and don't de-escalate. And there are many little principles like that. If you think in an innovative way, yes, you can do, we dare use the term, very surgical interventions that make a big difference for a very narrow but very large harmful problem for the population. So I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Prof. So you can see that from three of the sharing, right? Singapore public health actually is one of the largest health ecosystems in Singapore. They can collaborate with institution level, national level, as well as the agency level, right? So there are many things that you can actually collaborate with them. So feel free to reach out to them later on, right, to discuss about your collaboration opportunity. Now maybe we move on to Ying, right? Now moving on to the commercial sector, more in the pharma and medtech industry. We know in pharma industry, where you actually come from, there's a lot of AI use in the drug discovery, right? That's something common that we all heard about. but is there any other AI use cases in the pharma or medtech industry that you can share with us?
Thanks, Jim. Well, first disclaimer is that I'm no expert in AI, nor am I expert in tech. And I think I can speak for that as Raj as well. Like, we're not an expert, but what we want to do is actually be able to actually leverage on the technology in the application. So from very simple stuffs, right? I think three things that in general what we use and leverage AI on. From simple thing in terms of like improving personal productivity. I think those are like low-hanging fruit, right? Like, how many people here know about ChatGPT and use them every day? So for a huge multinational like us, where we sit on a lot of customer database, as well as a lot of data database, we have our own version of a Roche ChatGPT, for example, which will be able to actually help our internal productivity in terms of, things that we need to find in the system, or in terms of how we actually interact with our customers, because a lot of things what we do is trying to provide medical information adequately to be able to actually support physicians' query on how they want to make a treatment decision, right? And we have so many trials. It's very hard for us to be a walking machine where we have all this information ready. So those are like low-hanging fruit on how it can actually help to improve our personal productivity. The second things that we try to do is actually process optimization, not just internally, because we have a lot of healthcare requirements that is actually quite laborious. And this is where, AI could actually help us in many ways to actually improve process, but also in healthcare environment. One very easy use case is that we can now use AI to actually help predict patients' risk factor, to then recommend whether should you or should you not actually receive a more stringent healthcare screening. And one very good pilot that we have been doing, or not actually pilot anymore, it's already out in the market, is what we call the lung flag algorithm, where based on the individual patient risk factor, you'll be able to screen and recommend whether is this patient a patient where it's actually high risk factor, and hence should actually receive low CT scanning on a regular basis. And I think these are things that is already available out there, quite validated on how we can actually help to improve process and the way we actually view and treat in the healthcare environment. Last but not least, I think what we're talking about is that the dream, actually the question is that, is it the dream or the promise that how we can actually revolutionize healthcare innovation with AI? And I think that is the one where there's a lot of debate. The promise sounds awesome. How do you actually use large language model, generative AI, to actually be able to make sense of the many years and tons of research that we have had to actually accelerate discovery? I mean, 90% of our trials never make it to the market. 90% of the molecules never make it. But it doesn't mean that there is no wealth of learning in there. We have just very limited ways of being able to digest this huge quantity of data that actually sits within the system. So if you are in close follow of the pharma news, you would have known that Genentech, our US company, are working very closely with NVIDIA right now to actually form what we call a closed loop lab, where how are we able to actually keep learning a different algorithm, feed back the data into it, and continue to improve, and hopefully that will be able to accelerate discovery. And maybe just to leave you with one thing that, it's not a dream, we feel, because of this technology, we are actually be able to actually develop a new class of drug called personalized cancer vaccine. As you know, in cancer treatment, we have to give treatment that today we're trying to escalate it to more personalized care by targeting on different antigens that actually cause the growth of cancer. But you can't personalize it to individual even with that kind of personalized technology, right? But with generative AI and the large language model right now, we are actually be able to create a personalized cancer vaccine tailored to each individual patient. So yes, conceptually, we're able to do it. Scalability and how do we actually continue to develop on that, I think is something that we are trying to optimize at the moment.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, NVIDIA is like one of the hottest company in AI that everyone wants to cooperate with. So glad that you are cooperating with them. Yeah. Of course, I used to remember that one of my pharma client, told me that every day that you spend on drug discovery is going to cost you another 1 million. So every shorter time to market actually benefit the patients at the end, right? And thanks for sharing that. So maybe we move to Benedikt, right? Being a research-based institution, and I know that FHT has launched many programs, some related to AI. Maybe you can share as well from a research perspective, what are some of the use cases that you're actually working on?
Thank you, Jim, for the invitation. Yeah, we launched the FST program, the first wave of it in 2020, and the concept is basically that we are taking technologies that have been developed to a certain extent at ETH and Zurich, bringing them into the Singaporean ecosystem, and then developing them further and testing here to provide the Singaporeans the opportunity to access the latest gadgets. And so we are obviously sort of use-inspired research and are trying to push this into commercialization or translation into hospitals, if you will. And we have now, in the space of rehabilitation of the upper arm after following stroke, we are partnering with Arctic Cares that is now commercializing two of the robotic devices that we brought with us. One of them was actually developed at NTU, I must admit, but we have more devices that could be commercialized in that space. And here the idea is to bring these devices to people's homes. Upper arm rehabilitation after stroke is very much a case of getting enough dosage in there and access to these devices through the clinics is perhaps challenging. So this is one of the ideas and a sample of commercialization. And you of course know that we are active in the development of apps as well. We, together with Zühlke, we developed the Level Up app in a really good collaboration. Here the idea is to nudge people to eat better and to exercise more and so on. And here we are quite interested in the topic of how do you best do that, and that is a science behind that. Because we all know these apps, we would typically just abandon them after using them for a day or so, and that's not the idea of course. Here there are some opportunities in commercialization, I would say, but moving forward we will probably be tapping into things like adherence and states of receptivity across agnostic to use cases, I would say. Since we brought in this technology into Singapore, the space is just crowded with apps and so on. So there's a need, we feel, to try to understand better what makes them work. The last case I will mention is in the musculoskeletal space, where we have quite a large part of the program is focused on managing the risk of falling and subsequent hip fractures in the elderly population. This is, of course, a growing population, growing problem, I would say, and we estimate that by the year 2050, more than 50% of hip fractures in the world will be in Asia. So it's a concern here. And what we're doing there is we have quite a portfolio there of technologies that we're doing research on, and there are some opportunities in commercialization there. One is to use sensors, and you see some of these devices on the demo table over there. One of the things we do is to use sensors to measure people's gait. We've measured, I think, in the end, we'll measure in 3,000 to 4,000 Singaporeans, both in the clinic and in people's homes. We go to their homes to do these measurements, and then we have a rapid assessment of whether we think they're at risk of falling in the future. So not looking only at their fall history, but whether they potentially fall in the future. So that gives us a probability of a fall, and then we have advanced image analysis and modeling technologies that allow us to model in a sort of a digital twin concept each individual that we have X-ray type of image data for, model their hip region and skeletal structure, and subject these models to a fall, typical fall to the ground, and then we assess what would be the outcome of the fall for these individuals. Here we think there is a potential commercialization aspect as well. As we are now working towards building up the 5-year follow-up program to FST which is to be launched in 2026. We are already in discussion with some of the hospitals, and there seems to be quite a bit of interest in terms of trying out these technologies in a parallel stream to the current care model, basically to assess how easy this would be to implement and how well they do actually. So we've met quite a positive spirit, I think, from some of the hospitals we've talked to about trying this out in the clinic.
Yeah, thanks for sharing many success use cases, and always seeing is believing, right? So their booth over there from Singapore-ETH Centre, you can see many of this in action, right? That you can understand even better. And I think I was just attending the, I think it's called World Aging Festival today and yesterday, right? And I think fall prevention or fall prediction that you talk about is one of the very hot topic that everyone is talking about that. Although I understand in Singapore, there are many hospital or elder care home already deploying some of these things as well, right? So thanks for sharing. So maybe we move on to the next question, and it's open to any panelists to start with. Yeah, like what Amy mentioned, who doesn't use ChatGPT here, right? So ChatGPT is one form of Gen AI, but there are more than that, right? There's Copilot, there's Bart, and Amy already shared that you're using it more like a Roche version of ChatGPT for internal efficiency. So maybe we start with public health, right? Anyone wants to take the questions about how do you use Gen AI today, right? And in fact, when I was in Hong Kong, someone told me that they don't believe in hiring data scientists anymore because they want to leave it to the hyperscaler like Microsoft and AWS to actually do all the LLM so that they can benefit from that. So what's your perspective on that? Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let me try to tackle this first. So so I think Gen AI, and of course started with GPT technology, 3.5 and 4. In fact, we already started hearing GPT technology 2.0 when they actually start writing an article for New Yorker. That was like 4 or 5 years ago. And of course, 3.5, when it came out, it really, excited the world. That was early last year in 2023. And 4.0 came out, and then that started the global race, right? So, I mean, the three big figures in deep learning, Jeff Hinton, Yann LeCun, of course, now Elon Musk also came out and say 6 months, you have to stop it because we don't know what, this monster are we building. So we don't know how to control it, hence we have to stop. And then, of course, the other pool, like, Andrew Ng, not sure how many of you have heard of him. He's Stanford, Singaporean previously, chief scientist of Baidu, now doing the deep learning.ai. He said have to continue together with Yann LeCun. Jeff Hinton, of course, is on the other side. He quit Google and now is, So I think there's there's actually divided thoughts in the guru in the field. So coming back to healthcare, we published a paper in Nature Medicine last year, highlighting some of the opportunities and challenges, right? So the very low-hanging fruit, and when I look at Gen AI used in healthcare, we divided that based on complexity of the task. There's a low-level complexity task that healthcare can do, including summarization, organization. For example, right, as a houseman, that some of you actually, if you're from the clinical care, each time when a patient who stays in the hospital for 30 days, and then on the 31st day that the patient, your consultant tell you that this person has to go home, please prepare a discharge summary. This is when the hell comes. You have to actually stay on till 5 p.m. and then summarizing, flipping. And back then, there's no electronic health records. For me, I have to flip through pages of notes. And then, as you know, doctor's writing is the most legible, like the the writing of all. So you have to not only to kind of decipher what these writings are, and then you have to summarize it in a very nice way. So I mean, those are the things that ChatGPT right now, if you just run it through, it can give you an answer like within just I think less than 1 minute time. I think this is the low complexity of the task that I think ChatGPT can do really well. Then what is the higher hanging fruit that what ChatGPT that we think it needs a lot of robust training to do? Clinical decision, support too. Meaning that if I give a patient, the scenarios, 68-year-old man coming with chest pain, with 2 days duration, with a history of like 3 highs, high blood pressure and things. What is the differential? Then you start feeding with ECG, start feeding with the laboratory testing, and then what is the diagnosis that the patient warrant. So those are the things that that is in my mind is called the software as a medical device route. So that requires regulatory assessment and approval before you can actually use it. So I think if you actually look at, of course, the third one will be the scientific, the content. So a lot of people, actually write papers, and you can use that to proofread. Some people actually use that to generate, but you have to be actually honest about you using the ChatGPT and then declare it in a scientific content manuscripts. So I thought this is some of the few use cases that we already start seeing. Of course, AlphaFold 3 just came out yesterday. I'm not sure how many of you read the Nature article. It is gonna change how the drug discovery field is gonna be done. AlphaFold 2, when it came out 2018, and it has already beat a lot of the different AI algorithms in the CAPS-13. So CAPS-13 is like to predict protein folding and unfolding. So by right, you should already know how the new drugs can be potentially found. But so far, for the last 3 years, we haven't seen a new drugs being found with the AlphaFold 2 technology. But AlphaFold 3, that is a hope, because not only that they can predict how the protein can fold and unfold, but they can also look at the interactions, of the different ligands with the protein. This is exactly how the drugs is actually work. So this is something, a space to actually for everyone to look out for the next I would say 18 to 24 4 months time. So I just going to stop here with these 4 very, very concrete use cases that I think healthcare can potentially adopt. Yeah.
Yeah, there's we gave some great examples, Daniel, and there's a huge spectrum of use. It's interesting, the basic summarization functions, which there are a lot of solutions that are out on the market now for that. They're actually quite good, but they're not perfect. And one of the things we keep running up against in any form of Gen AI is this tendency to hallucinate and just put in stuff that seems to have come from nowhere, right? It's actually an interpolation, or I've actually searched on some of the most egregious hallucinations, and I've actually found them as an entry in Reddit, that someone said that in Reddit, and that's where they picked it up. So this, only in the last year has it started to be studied very carefully, where they're coming from and what can be done about it. And we're definitely driving them down, like very basic things, like at this time still, ChatGPT makes up references. It makes up references to papers. They're closing that loop. They've just announced that they're closing that loop. So they'll check the reference. Clinical Key AI from Elsevier already does that. They check the reference. Very basic thing. You think they would have done it, right? So we're driving that down, but you have to be aware that there's a significant risk that we'll never be able to drive it to be a small level. And there are people like Jan LeCun, for example, believes I attended his lecture at the biggest AI conference 2 months ago, and he says it's a dead end. This is totally, and he has some authority. It's total dead end. And of course, he has an alternative process, which is based on world knowledge, slowly accumulating world knowledge. So what do we do during this period of uncertainty where we have these annoying little bugs, a little bit like self-driving cars, right? Self-driving cars on the average may be able to drive better than the average human, but we won't accept them and we won't allow them, their use, because when they make a mistake, that's intolerable. That's intolerable, right? So what are we going to do during this period where we have this, what is actually fantastic technology, lots of evidence that it exceeds the capability of humans on the average, but on the tail it doesn't? Well, there are things you can do. So, for example, there are various checking systems, and there's very good research about how to actually drive these. And we now understand there's 3 or 4 types of these hallucinations that occur. But there are things like I mentioned before. You use them in a dual dialogue manner. Use it to advise a clinician, and then the clinician's responsible. Of course, there's still a risk that he will unintentionally cut and paste something. But the potential is huge. And if you use it in the right way, many of you have read the article about tethered cord syndrome. So there was a lady who had a child, that was completely normal up to he was 3 years old. And then he started exhibiting strange behaviors, tantrums, dragging one of his feet when he walked, etc. And she went to 17 specialists, you know, in all special, and they all said nothing wrong with him. It's a mental problem. You'll have to put him in a special school, etc. Right? And eventually, she just asked ChatGPT 4 at the time, and one of the things that came out was tethered cord syndrome. What's that? So she Googled it, and it turns out to be a quite rare form of spina bifida where the spinal cord gets attached to the vertebra. And so she went back to one of the neurologists and said, "Can you take a look at the MRIs again?" And he looked at it and he said, "Yeah, there it is, tethered cord, I see it." And a little snip in the surgery, and the kid's better, acting normally, running around after 17 doctor's visits. So the doctors on the average are damn good, and with GPT, they're even better at doing these things. But you think of the power of adding that. You just have to put it in the right place. Let it summarize and let the doctor sign off on the discharge order. Let it look for rare diseases. Let it do the things that can supplement and complement the practice. The potential is enormous. Do what Elsevier has done with the mining the entire medical literature. No, they do not mine Reddit or LinkedIn or Facebook or anything for they mine medical approved peer-reviewed papers, by the way, of which half are still wrong. They have results that cannot be replicated. But half is not bad. In behavioral science, it's 90% are not reproducible. So that's okay, perfect for AI. You mine the half that are good, and you look at the ones you probably also know the story of for 17 years we believed that metformin would prevent cancer in diabetics. And there were over 100 trials, many of which replicated that, and I was going to start taking metformin, okay, to try to keep cancer away. And only a year ago, the actual randomized clinical trials showed that there was no effect, zero effect. We now know why. The trials were all flawed. Immortal time bias, it turned out to be. So yes, you need the AI to go in and find those flaws in the trial and then give it to a distinguished doctor who will sign off on it, and you get the right. So yes, it's fantastic. Use it in the right way, suspect it, be skeptical of it, build these, and it's not just a simple checker at the end. Building a guardrails post-processor for medical advice is harder than the base GPT itself. Cannot be done. We thought it could be done. People are saying now it can never be done, and Jan LeCun is saying it's a total dead end trying to do things that way. So read Jan's latest papers on JEPA and VJEPA. It's going to take a long time to do what he wants to do, and it'll have other side effects. But potential is enormous. Use it in the right context. It'll have incredible and powerful benefits.
Interesting. So, since you talk about metformin, I don't know if the pharmacies want to say something about that.
That's a commodity drug. They have no interest in that drug.
Topic.
No interest.
Or you talk about mining, maybe the data person wants to say something.
Let me try to change the subject a bit. I think I'll share from my perspective as a technologist, right? Is that I think Gen AI is great, right? But it's just a subset of AI, right? I think large language models or foundational models have been there for many, many years. Just that we've turned it in the right direction. Some people put enough effort to try out something new, and it became right in the face of everybody. When I started AI, when we described this to everybody, the people were like, huh? But after we implemented it, it's like, where is it? It's in the code. But where is it? So now it's right in the face, people can interact with it. I think it creates a lot of opportunities for people. I think the missing equation is now people interacting with AI to get them ready, right? It could be a tool or it could be a weapon. But the more early that we bring them into this to understand in a controlled environment, I think the better we will be at that. So for public healthcare, what we have done, so I think it's going to be a multi-model environment, right? Sora can create videos, but Gemini can read videos, they just purposely want to do something different, right? But which is good. And we think that multi-model environment will be useful only when people know and understand how to interact with at least one LLM well, right? Or AI as a concept well. So since November last year, we have built a LLM, in-house LLM platform called Tandem. That means we're not jumping down with the people, but we kind of in tandem with you, right? So for public healthcare, and we have now about 50,000 of all our public healthcare users can use them. right? Basically, we connect to OpenAI, right? We are going to connect to, we're in discussion to connect with Google, and we have made agreements to connect to AWS Bedrock so that we can access things like Claude, etc. So we want to make all this available to our users early in a controlled environment so that we protect them from some of the harms. So why do we create one? Why don't we just ask, hey, just subscribe to OpenAI? So first of all, we want to allow the use of restricted data in our environment, right? So that the users can try out some things that they are working on and be able to experiment based on the data they're working on day to day. We have set a whole list of guardrails, things like PII filtering, abuse monitoring, and a lot of loggings to connect with this. And we worked with the LM providers to integrate it in a secure way where our data will not be stored there, right? So this is Tandem as a different function. The first function is a discovery environment, so people can go there just like Google and try it out and play around with it, experiment and understand. At the very bottom of that layer, we have something called Ground Zero. Truth be told, I came out with the name today so that I can tell it to you, right? It's supposed to be a healthcare repository algorithm, but I thought it's not sexy enough, so it's fun. So this is where we want to put all the grounding, right? All the prompts that we can reduce some of the hallucination, as well as contextualize some of the information so it's be useful for us. I think this is very important, right? Ethics, in a way, is very different for every single individual, right? You cannot let Microsoft or Google tell you what is ethics, right? Because we don't think they have ethics, right? They only want money, right? So we need to control it. Oh, sorry.
And AWS people.
Yeah, they're my best friends, but yes, Yeah. So, but the thing is that we can't allow somebody to control our ethics. We need to have one. I mean, you can build at the application layer, you can build at many layers. At individual, you need to understand to do it well. But we try to build one at the healthcare layer so that as people are experimenting, we try to control some of the hallucinations that we know of, provide a contextualization to make it easier for them to interact with. And basically, that's what we want to do to help them and activate our 50,000 users to use this technology. Now, if every one of them can build one prompt to help them in their day-to-day tasks, it'd be wonderful, right? We also have this environment called Test Drive, right? They see some prompts from TikTok, right, or whatever. Say, hey, it's good, I want to try it out. They want to do some RAG use cases. RAG use cases is create your own specific database where you query the answer through your database. And I want to try out and do this by myself without, disturbing the rest, We create an environment for people to try that. And we want people to try that out, right? And then we have this live environment. I say you can deploy it no matter what way you like. We'll help you manage some of the security, manage some of the controls, help you control some of the hallucinations so that you can focus on inventing the next product, right? And to help them get started, we actually came out with this program called Gen AI and Us. It's called Genius, right? We have a lot of code names and things like that. So it's called Genius, where we get everybody together. We got our partners together. We got AWS, Google, Microsoft to run the workshops to help people kind of demystify what is LLM, right? Please do not take LLM as the problem and solution and try to implement something. But what is your problem that you're trying to solve, right? So I think those workshops actually help clarify a lot of things that from a business and user's perspective. And then we try to help them craft out the ideas, and we are starting MVPs with them. So I think main point is that there's no point trying to catch the next LLM. Let the next LLM come to you. You should be ready to use them. And once you are able to maximize how you use them, I think that's where the real value starts. They will always be different, This month, it'll be Google. Next month, there'll be something else. Claude is damn nice, right? So, but the question is, how can we apply the right one to the right use case? It could be a combination. It could be a specific one. But the consistent part of the equation will be that human that's designing it. And the person needs to be knowledgeable. The person needs to understand how to use it, how to deploy it, and what the product they create needs to include a certain level of ethics and controls so that people can use them wisely.
Sorry, I thought I wouldn't left that conversation hanging.
So you talk about metformin or?
No. But I'm not going to address that particular thing. But I think it's a very good example. And a provocative question is that how sure are you that actually the phase 3 study is actually more reliable than actually a real world evidence, right? And I'm trying to actually change the angle of like how we can actually employ some of this new technology in some of the conventional things that we actually do. And one of it is actually in the topic of pharmacovigilance, which is safety reporting and real-world evidence. So a lot of drugs that we approve, we're all subject to real-world safety reporting. Today, this process is super laborious. We have a PV hub here. It's literally people sitting down and looking and scouring through data to make sure that we report every single adverse events. It gets reported to health authority, who then try to make sense of it and then tell you that, hey, you have a signals or you don't have a signals. It's a very slow, laborious process. And whether you like it or not, actually this concept of whether it's protective against cancer is actually a side effect or not the intended study of the drug, but it's an effect of the drug, right? And we actually today are very laboriously collecting all these effects. And these are the things that immediately could be replaced. But one of the debatable topic is that today is run by human eye, you assume it's 100% accuracy. When you actually put it and run it with AI and all those things, the accuracy may be 98%. Is 98% good enough? And are we assuming that actually with human eyes, actually 100% accuracy? It's not either, right?
Yeah.
But our belief and our confidence to actually be able to change this is not there. Will any health authority actually accept that, hey, I'm not going to use human eyes anymore? Let's work together. Let's AI the entire process and change this very obsolete reporting system because it can actually generate much more impact. Then the next question is that with all these effects that you're seeing, do you still need to run a phase 3 study? Each phase 3 study add on another 100 million investment, add on another increase in terms of healthcare cost burden, which we keep asking for more evidence, but we forget that when we ask for more evidence, we actually increase a lot of cost. But are we bold enough to make that first change and to change how we actually do healthcare research and how we accept healthcare studies as per today? That's why I say this is the idea of the promise of AI and digitalization for the future. But, it really needs us to reimagine and dare to actually take the first step for change.
I just wanted to dovetail that. I can't help myself by just dovetailing that, right? No, I see, like this open up the philosophical questions. What is
Me and Daniel can go on and on.
no, because in AI, because the truth is always the debate, right?
Yep.
Is human ground truth is the real truth, or then in my mind there would not be such thing. Who watched the show called Enigma, right? How if you use the human way of looking at the codes, we will never win the World War II, right? So this is one of the things that in World War II, back in 1940s and things, is already demonstrated that the real truth may not be the human truth. So this is, again, the 98%, could the AI be 100%, the human be the 98%? I'm not sure. So those are the things that in the computer science and the healthcare intersection, this is something that us clinicians always struggling about. So those are the things I just wanted to echo what Ying has said, right?
I think Ying gave a wonderful example. I absolutely agree. Because you see what you're doing in that case is you're using AI asymmetrically, just like I described, like escalation under de-escalate. You're using it to do greater discovery. You look through the pharmacovigilance and you find the cases that really need to be examined. So if you use it in the right way for another level of discovery, and then you get combine that with humans, very, very similar to radiology. Like the most advanced AI in healthcare, without a doubt, is radiology. It's just beautiful the way it's progressed. And in so many of the studies, in just actually not missing, whether it's in ultrasound or chest x-ray, in terms of just not missing findings, it's better. It's better than highly trained radiologists. But when you combine it with a person who's trained as a medical doctor reading it, and he uses his or her knowledge of disease progression and other things that are in their vast training and a much greater functional understanding of anatomy, which the image processing algorithm doesn't have, what do you think happens? human and you know, the AI can lift and can prevent the missing of a mass in a mammogram or whatever, and it'll pick things up. But only the human can apply the knowledge to not overread. Okay, and so you use this very clever combination of AI for discovery and human for decision making, better informed than they ever have been before. What's happening now? We have the best radiology that we've ever had, and it's at a even or maybe slightly lower cost. I'm not worried about a cost saving. I'm worried that the quality, we've improved the quality of that unit operation to a point we've never seen before, thanks to AI. So yes, applied cleverly, yes, you can mask out those disadvantages and those occasions. Very much like Andy is saying, you train people to use it and to adopt the techniques sensibly, and not to use it in a random or careless or a reckless way. And we will move forward in tremendous steps.
Actually, I do not want to add.
Sorry, I just want to add one thing. So sorry, when we launched Tandem to a lot of users, right? The highest up, we got a lot of tickets, right? What hallucination. Then we went through a lot of them. We realized that the hallucination came from the user, right? So that's why human and AI need to work together. Because the information is really accurate, right? But the person thought, no, my understanding is correct, right? But there could be, if you follow through, you look at the statistical, you look at the source, actually they weren't aware of this. And the first thing they did was, no, you are wrong, right? So I think the human and AI working together is the most important part to make it valuable. It can't be AI and human working against each other.
So maybe Benedikt, you can put a concluding remark.
I wrap it up here and tie this together for you, Jim. No, just a short comment on this, just to give people a little bit of understanding of how fast this has developed, as Andy is saying. When we were developing the first FST proposal back in 2018, I don't think we put the word AI in there. I used the word data-driven models maybe a couple of times, maybe not knowing what that was. And there was some discussion, I remember, in the context of the chatbots, whether AI would be the future of that. And people said, categorically, no, you cannot use AI in these situations. Now the discussion has developed towards using maybe large language models in chatbots in mental health, basically. Yeah. And here we're talking about hallucination. And Robert and I discussed this. What do you do about that last week? And you pointed out an interesting thing. Well, you probably have to address this at the level of training instead of trying to just finding it. But I fully agree that I think this intelligent use of artificial intelligence is I think the way forward, at least in the next few years. There's a lot of potential and a lot of good use cases. I would agree with that.
Thanks for sharing. Actually, I was discussing with Ben previously as well, because I used to work for the top 2 AI doctor in the world, Peng An Good Doctor and Babylon Health. So there's a lot to share, and I'm actually a strong advocate of an AI doctor, which probably we can debate later on.
So policies can never catch up with technology. I think we just have to accept that, right? I think even in Synapxe, when we develop quite a lot of things, we set our own guidelines to guide us, which is why having an internal capability to understand the technology and advise the business is important, right? If not, either you listen to the wrong person or you become overly conservative, right? About data, I thought that was one of the questions, but one of the things that we're trying to do, we've collected quite a lot of data in Singapore, right? I'm not allowed to say this, but we have, right? And what we are trying to do with the data that we've collected, right? And I think I've seen others and ours, they have a lot more depth, but we have a lot more width, right, of our population. And what we're trying to use that data to do is we're doing 2 things. The first one, I don't think is worth mentioning to answer your question. First, we're using the data to grow more humans, right? So to get more people to use data, right? The second one, you're using data to grow more data, right? Using the data to grow more data, we have created this platform called Trust, right? It's a trusted platform that is co-developed by MOH, SNDGO, GovTech, and Synapxe, right? That is put in an isolated environment where government can share data with partners to collaborate, right? So you have a hypothesis that you think you can bring and validate in Singapore, mainstream or not. you can actually put out a request there and you can use the environment to access the data. You can bring your data there and do some comparison. Because it's an independent, secure data environment, your data is safe. We are not going to take your data, right? So that is one place that we can do that. If you have products that you think work, that could be as a part of maybe a longer term research or observational research, you can also deploy it in trust, right? Also now you can also go into the sandbox that we're trying to build as part of ICE to let you figure out. If it's a more academic to prove that your product works, I think trust will be a great place. Just put it there, we'll put the data, run it through, then you know whether it works or not. But if you want to see, you can operationalize, and the other part where then you can see all the integration, how the data is coming from. I think for public health, it's very, very difficult. I just share an example. We created a model that was pretty accurate. I think AUC was 80 plus, PBV was 78%, where we can predict patients' high risk of multiple readmissions in 12 months. Right? It was quite good, right? But we decided to put the accuracy, keep the cutoff at a high accuracy, right? That means patient that we know for sure very accurately will come back 3 or more times. But these are the people that are very, very sick, right? From an outcome perspective, we cannot do that much for them to get a very good outcome, right? When we put our papers up for peer reviews, they'll keep telling us, push down your cutoff. Get in those a bit, not so accurate, but people who are probably not that sick, so have a better chance to get a better outcome, right? As a technologist, I brought this back. The 1 and 0 thing, statistically proven, yes, we'll get better outcome. But our clinicians say, no, we must help the patients who need us the most. So that's public healthcare for you. So we may not have to do the wrong thing to get the right thing, but we definitely try to do the right thing to get the right outcome. So sometimes it may seem more viable, but I think for public healthcare, it's really about the population.
Thank you, Andy. Before the next debate, like what Daniel said, this is going to be a 3-day, 3-night discussion, and you need another 5 more days for the workshop. So maybe I can just do a concluding remarks. We can discuss more during dinner time. Right? Maybe each of the panelists, 1 minute concluding remarks. How do you think that the people can adapt, the organization can adapt to the changes that AI will bring to the future of health? And how should they actually ride on the wave of AI? Yep. Maybe Prof, you want to start first?
Yeah, I just say stay very open-minded, constantly watch developments. It's changing very, very fast, and experiment, try things in a safe place. And we have a huge upside ahead of us in AI and in healthcare innovation in general. Not limited to AI, but all aspects of healthcare, making huge strides. And we need it. We need it if we just think about aging in rich countries, but just think about the rest of the world. In a few years, the birth rate is only really high in Africa and India, and it's actually dropping dramatically in India. All the young people will be in Africa. What are we going to do? We have very profound problems that we have to deal with, and thinking about technologies and how we can share this trust that we're going to have for some of the less well-off countries, and what we can do, because those are the future. They'll be buying our products. They'll have the populations of the large countries, large Western countries are already dropping. So we have to think broadly about this. People are living longer, but they're not healthier for longer. So we have very profound social problems to deal with. And I think between all the innovation that's I know some of you are working on quite narrow surgical devices, etc. Between those and the correct application of innovation, we have this very exciting time ahead of us to change outcomes, to manage costs before healthcare bankrupts every country. We have this chance to manage costs, improve outcomes, and actually change the nature of human lifetimes.
I think 3 points to make, right? So first, I think apart from being optimistic, being cautious about what we already spoken about, I think be very practical about what you do, right? Just to respond to Bo's comment, I think choose the field that you have absolute control in, and then define the clinical intended use properly, and then with a very clear ROIs. ROIs, am I saving manpower? Am I actually reducing the cost? So if you actually go with one of these two areas, I think you'll have a very good win. And then, of course, I think be resource efficient. And if you can avoid using AI, please do not use AI. Why? And I've said it in our previous panels, who actually is experiencing a very heaty last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? Global warming is just right as we say. And environmental sustainability, carbon footprint is something that we haven't actually touched upon today at all, right? But this is actually getting extremely serious. On the way back, on the way back, from the flight from Seattle, I watched this show, The Day After Tomorrow. It's essentially the world is coming to an end, ice age, right? So if we want to keep burning GPUs, everyone's talking about H180 gigs, B100 is coming out, foundation models, everyone just keep talking about these buzzwords, we're going to kill the earth. I don't even can foresee like the 4th or 5th generation is going to come out. So I think this is one of the things that we have to be very cautious about. Be very judicious about your computing power use, because this actually directly relates to environmental sustainability. So think twice for your kids or your grandkids or your great-grandkids. Yeah.
Thanks, Daniel. So you talk about sustainability, we will have sustainability in health in November, right? That's going to be a half-a-day forum that we talk about sustainability. So yeah, sorry, Ben.
Yeah, I was going to promote the use of foundation models, but yeah.
You need a master class for that. We can organize for you. Yeah.
So I have to redesign my answer. But I think this is the reality now. And I mentioned, we started with zero AI when we started the first program, and now we're talking about potentially bringing in the ETH AI Centre into the next program. There's a drive towards doing that. AI is here to stay in our daily work as users of AI in research. Now we see it in our hirings. Is organically we're looking for people that have these skills. We even setting up courses at the center for training people to use at least basic AI skills. So environmental. That's a good point. Again, be intelligent about the use of artificial intelligence. I think I leave it at that.
Thank you. Ying?
So maybe two parting thoughts. One is believe in possibilities. And the second thing is that how important collaboration is during this era. So that I can follow on with that sustainability code, but also scalability. And not that all of us needs to actually replicate all this research. It's very important. Like we cannot catch up with the technology, but each of us, if we feel that we need to do this alone, oh my God, like we used to function in healthcare in quite siloed, to be fair.
Yep.
But the world has kind of like connect all of us together. Like we can't afford these silos. We cannot catch up, and we are wasting time, and we are arguing with each other when we can actually work together. So I think collaboration for me is key, so that we can reduce resource use, but also really be more impactful.
You should talk to Zühlke more. We are a strong advocate of collaboration. Right? We have health ecosystem that we build as well. Yeah, should go as well.
So I think my 1 minute point is don't fire your data scientists just yet.
Okay, good.
By the way, I was going to take a PhD, but I decided not to because maybe not worth it, right? But having said that, you do need organizational capability to manage this AI, right? IT is not AI, but AI is not IT. Don't expect your CIO to know everything, right? You need something. It will continue to evolve, and you need the expertise to help adapt the AI to your organization. So maybe fire some, right? But you do need to keep. Okay, I have quite a lot of data scientists, all PhD people. I told them that your job all at risk. So you all better tell me what you all can do better, right? And the first thing they did was, why don't we create a new LM now, right? So I think that's the first thing. I think don't fire your data scientists. You need to grow a capability in the organization. Second thing is, I think in life, everybody, use what is already available. There's so much. It's called large language model for a reason. I think they are very modest already. They are large. It's like XXXXXXL, right? So there's so many things we can do. There's so many things available. Don't start by saying, let's create my own LM. I think that will be a mistake, and I think that will take away all the time and energy from you applying it and learning to apply. I think the key game is applying and have a portfolio. Not every project will have an ROI immediately, but that is where, but do stop and fail fast so that you can then start the next project that can really build on the last one to build the ROI. Yep, thanks.
Thanks, Andy. Yep. So thanks to my distinguished panelists for sharing their insights. I guess you learned a lot, and feel free to connect with them after that. And again, thanks to Embassy of Switzerland in Singapore and Singapore-ETH Centre for co-organizing this together. Thank you all panelists. Yeah, and thanks the audience for joining us today.